Jeans are skinny like I put them on a diet. Jeans are...
Hi, I want to start off by thanking you for clicking on the video and taking a little time out of your day to watch me talk to the camera. I really do appreciate it, so thank you very much. Today's video is very much a personal video, but it is also a advice, suggestion video to those of you who are in recovery, for those of you who want to be in recovery, and for those of you who don't know if they're ready to give up their eating disorder. It's a very scary thing to choose recovery, but that's what it is. It's a choice. You have to choose recovery. So this video is something that I don't think is mentioned a lot. I don't think people tell you about this. People post on, Facebook and social media all this positivity towards recovery and how great how great it is. And it is very great, but I don't think people give you or tell you enough of like a warning, because it's not perfect. It's not going to fix. You're not going to be fixed immediately. You're not going to be cured immediately. It's a process. It's a lifelong process that you have to every day recommit to. And so today's video is something I want to talk about, is when things go wrong in recovery. And this is not like when you mess up. Relapse. That's not the kind of the thing that goes wrong is relapse. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the things that can lead to relapse and how to handle it. I'm going to use a very recent example from my own life, and I'm going to tell you I didn't handle it as well as I probably should have, and how you can not do what I did. So a couple weeks ago, I did have some technological difficulties in my life, and it led to a anxiety/panic attack. I do have anxiety, so I am prone to anxiety and panic attacks and such things, and that is what happens. And when I have a panic attack, this is very embarrassing for me to admit, but I become an infant. I can't speak. All I can do is make noises with my mouth and my nose, and you can't understand what's going on. I'm literally shaking. My body is shaking physically and inside. It's a very scary feeling, and anyone who's experienced a panic attack, everyone kind of experiences it a little differently, but everyone will say it's very scary. The first thing you have to do when something goes wrong, when you're in recovery, and you feel shaken up, you feel maybe you have an anxiety or panic attack, the first thing you have to tell yourself is that this is not forever. The panic attack will pass. The shaking will pass. You just got to keep breathing and get yourself through it. For me, eventually my ability to speak will come back, and it's very difficult when my mother or someone sees me having a panic attack and I can't tell them what's wrong. I literally physically cannot form words. I cannot form sentences to tell them, and eventually I can get like one word out, but it takes a while, and it's very difficult, and it's hard for me to be like, my mom is trying to help me. I can recognize that my mom is trying to help me, and I can't even help myself, and I can't even tell her how to help me. So the first thing is always tell yourself it's gonna pass. I have two main suggestions, and let me just say that you're not always gonna remember to do these things. Sometimes you're caught up in the moment and you're gonna go down a dark path. It's gonna happen. Unless you have the willpower of like a rhino, I don't know. Unless you have the strongest willpower in the world, let me tell you, there are gonna be setbacks. There are gonna be mess ups. It's inevitable. It's part of recovery, and it's about recognizing the mess up and moving on from it and starting over. So I have two suggestions. The first one is what I typically do, unless I am caught off guard by it's a setback, I'll call it. So I take a 12-step program approach to eating disorder recovery. An eating disorder is classified as an addiction. And so I say, take it at face value. Deal with it and work towards recovery in the way that an addiction is meant to be treated. And I think the 12-step program is a really good way for that. I don't think it works for everybody, but I think it helps for a vast amount of people. So if you're the type of person who thinks that is the approach that will be most beneficial, I would recommend doing that. Now, something about the 12-step program is you do have to admit that there is a higher power out there. But they never tell you what you have to believe in God. Like, you have to believe in Christian God, or you have to believe in Allah, or you have to believe in... They don't say that. They say you just have to admit there's a higher power out there, a higher power working. And why they tell you to do this is because every day, for me, every day, the first thing in the morning is I try. Sometimes I forget, but I do try to pray. You can pray, you can meditate, you can just speak to the universe. Whatever it is that you have chosen to believe in, you speak to it every morning, and you give your addiction to that higher power. And the reason why this is part of the 12-step program is because it's handing the addiction and saying, I don't want this anymore. There is something out there stronger and more powerful than me, and I'm going to give my addiction, and it's in the universe's hands. It's in God's hands. It's in whatever it is you choose to believe in. It's in your hands. My life is in your hands, and you are going to get me through this. The universe is going to get me through this somehow. And it's about, spiritually giving up your addiction and saying, I don't want this anymore. I don't want to be controlled by my addiction. So I am giving it, I'm handing it over. And that's why you have to do it every morning and recommit yourself to recovery. So while there are setbacks in recovery, when a setback happens, it occurs, recommit. If you can grab yourself and tell yourself, this is a setback, and recommit to the higher power, to the universe, to God, whatever it is you've chosen. Recommit to recovery and hand not only your addiction over again, but hand over the setback. So when there are setbacks, I say pray. If that is the approach to recovery that you think works for you, I say pray. So when things go wrong, catch yourself before, you have a relapse. And it takes practice, it takes trial and error. That's the best way. It takes error. It does. I don't think it's said enough that there is going to be error. There is going to be mess ups. There are going to be setbacks. Most people just paint recovery as this beautiful, flowery field of joy and happiness all the time. And while it is, sometimes it's not all the time. It's a hard process, but it's a process worth going through. The second suggestion, my other suggestion, if prayer, meditation, if that's not something that works for you, as it doesn't work for everyone, and that's okay, I would say distraction. Find something and get out. If something goes wrong like in your house, get out of your house. If you are, if something comes to your mind, go for a walk. Get out in nature. Get some fresh air. Go for a drive. Find an outlet. If you're an artist, get back into art. Do art as the way to get rid of any anxiety or stress when there are setbacks. If you're a writer, start writing. If you're a poet, start, just write. If you love to read, start reading. Just distract your mind from the issue. And then come back to the issue. For me, with my technological setback, this is what I should have done. I should have first prayed and put it in God's hands. And the second thing I should have done was just step away from it, which is what I actually finally did after a mess up. So for people with eating disorders, a lot of the time it's a way of control. And they fall into these bad eating habits and food habits because they feel their life is out of control, and this is one aspect of their life they can control. So when they're in recovery and there are setbacks, it's like their life is spinning out of control. It could be the smallest thing in the world, but their life is in chaos at that point, and they want to hold on to their control, and that's when they will revert back to their eating disorder. It's like a little, when there's a setback, it's like a little crack in the door, and the eating disorder like creeps around the corner and pops out and gets you. But it's about shutting it back and putting it back in there and saying, no, I'm not gonna do that. And I'll be the first to admit, I wish every single time there was a setback that I did that, and I don't. I'm human. I have the eating disorder did and still does have quite a hold over my life, but every single day I try to recommit myself to recovery, and some days are peachy keen and some days are shit. So you're gonna have ups and downs, and it's just about, when there is a down, finding a way through it without reverting to bad choices, bad habits. I'm being realistic here, and shit happens, and this is how you get through shit without adding to it with, bad choices. So it's about finding what approach to recovery works for you. Everyone's different. Everyone has a different process that makes sense to them. My process is focused on spirituality and making yourself aware that there is something bigger out there than you and your eating disorder, and being aware that you don't have to live with it. You don't have to have an eating disorder. It's not forever. This too will pass. So, I think I rambled on quite enough. I hope I helped someone. I hope this made sense to someone. And as always, I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.